Middle schoolers? Yes? What grade is everyone in? 10th and 11th? 8th? Okay. 7th? Senior? Senior, freshman, junior, the two of you. Back are? Freshman and? Freshman, gotcha, great, wow. Mostly students, gotcha. This is great. Yeah.
Okay, Sebastian, I'm going to start. Okay. I'm sorry? We are streaming, okay. All right, so I'll just stay over here. Okay.
I'll go and see if I can. How do I get this thing up? It used to be able to up here.
I'm sorry?
It used to go ahead and show the slides up here, but it's now just showing me, which is great. 3 of me is great, but.
He's going to get you on there. Sebastian will get you. He was wondering about his slides. Okay.
Yeah, there was a mirror display before.
Okay. All right, we're going to start. I'll start then. Okay.
Yeah.
Are we ready then? Can I start? Ready? Okay. So you have the music on, right? Okay. Well, I'd like to today's meeting on how to be a bad student. No, it's a good student, right? Okay. Hey, Ryan, come on in. So let's start with prayer. And dear Father in heaven, thank you so much for this opportunity to learn practical tips on how we can be better students in this life. And so I pray that your blessing will be over our speaker, Jay Cha, and also ourselves, so that we may take something that is useful to practice in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, so a lot of you folks are here because your parents sent you, because they want you to be an excellent student. We know that's very important in the Asian culture. And so, you know, your families take education very seriously. Today's speaker is Mr. Jay Cha, and he is the CEO and founder of the Study Co., which helps students with standardized testing and also to help them get into the college of their choice. Right? Some of you, how many of you are thinking of Southern? Raise your hands.
Oh, this is already on?
Okay, quite a few of you. Okay, how many of you thinking of a school outside of Southern? Raise your hands. Okay, so there are some of you who are thinking outside. All right, so he recently took some students out to the West Coast to check out some very, very nice schools out there. So he's really interested in you guys doing well in school and succeeding in life. He has a passion for you guys. And so I hope that you will be blessed and give good attention to what he's saying. Also, there will be a Q&A session after his talk.
Great. Hi guys, I'm Jaemin Cha. If you're students, you can call me Mr. Cha. I'm going to go ahead and see. It's my first time being here giving a presentation. So I'm going to go and make sure the slide is working. Is it all good? How the slides show up? Started. Oh, it is on display. It's actually on display mode now. Oh, okay. Let me go and see. Is that good? Let me go ahead and. Wow, that's a really small mouse. Great, awesome. Once again, guys, I'm Jaemin Cha. I've been a teacher, mentor, tutor, and college admissions interviewer for the last 10 years, working with the University of Chicago. I worked in the school systems in Chicago, Harlem, Atlanta, as well as the countrysides of Korea. And during my time teaching and being an educator, I've had the privilege of meeting lots of great students, teachers, parents, and I want to thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to share with you some of my experiences, things I've learned on how to become a better student, navigating how we go through middle school and high school and college and onwards, yeah, and just getting a chance to talk about education, which is something I'm very excited about. As Eunice had said, At the end of this, there'll be a question and answer session. Feel free if you have any questions as I give this presentation, if you have questions about the SAT, ACT, college admissions, anything education related, generally I should be able to answer it, so feel free to ask. If you're a little bit shy at the end of it, or you don't want to ask kind of while I'm up here, you can wait till the end of it and ask me separately. That's okay as well, all right? So let's go and see if this works. Next slide. Great, so the seminar is going to go ahead and cover 3 topics: the how, the why, and the where. The how is going to cover how do we study? How do we become better students? How do we approach education? You're all students here. You guys study every day. And we can go through the motions without actually thinking about the process in itself. So let's take some time and go through them. A lot of you guys may be great students already. Maybe all of this might be unnecessary for you. And that's okay. We can just be all in agreement here. Because there might be a time where studies get a bit more difficult. Being a student might become harder. And maybe a few things here can help you guys out through some harder times. We'll talk about the why tomorrow. You're all studying, going through this sort of process of being a student. And we need to think to ourselves, why go through it all? Who here finds studying a lot of fun? Like, it's so enjoyable. I look forward to it every day. Anybody here? No? Anybody? Nobody? Nobody likes to. Who's not a big fan of studying? Not a big fan yet? Oh, only one person. How about the rest of you guys? Where are you guys at then? Right? In between? Neutral about it? I think as something gets more difficult, as things get more challenging, it's our duty to go and answer the question, why do we go through it? What's the point of it, right? And that's what we'll aim to go and answer the next day. And then finally, on Sunday, we'll go over where all this can take us. I saw some of you guys who are interested in going to college outside of Collegedale. Talk about what the current standards for the college admissions process is. What kind of majors are there outside of just medicine? If you want to go into medicine, what does that process look like? What can you do to become a lawyer, a dentist, a startup entrepreneur, somebody who can code? What does the future hold for you, and what can you do now? One of the key aims of education is to take where you guys are right now and connect it to your future selves. The future self is a very sort of abstract concept, right? You're all going to grow older one day, right? How real does that feel to you, being a college student, graduating, being an adult one day? It can feel overwhelming, something we don't like to think about, or something just difficult to go ahead and define. I'm hoping that this seminar can help you navigate that with greater confidence and clarity. So the story, where does it start? It starts with you guys, right? The story is about students, right? Here, look, all these happy students eager to be studying. Look at that. Are you guys this happy when you're in school, yeah? Oh, ready to learn math, science, English, all those kind of things, right? The story is about you. It's the students. Your relationship with your teachers, your parents, yourself, and the things that you learn, right? And so I want to talk about what exactly does education promise to all of you guys. I think you guys all have heard the story. Can anyone here tell me why we study? If someone asks you, what does education hold for you? Anybody answer? What? Are you guys all shy? Too scared to kind of raise your hands and answer? No? Anybody? No, no, no. Oh! Career and finances, absolutely. That's the first point. Education promises for us opportunity, right? Opportunity to do what? We live in a society where market forces are active. We live in a capitalistic society where we need to specialize our skills, become doctors, become lawyers, enhance our tools, our professionalism, so our time is valuable and we can sell it in the marketplace for money, get jobs, and be active contributing members of society. There's opportunity ahead, abound, right? I remember I've taught calculus for 7 years in high school, and my students would oftentimes ask me, Mr. Cha, anyone taking calculus here? Calc? What about pre-calc? Anyone take pre-calc? Do you like the unit circle? Is it any fun? No? You don't like the units? Yeah, they'd ask, why do we need to learn about circles and triangles all day long? What's the point of all these unit circles, right? And it's true. Most students won't use the unit circle. But having learned it, having learned the language of math, you have the opportunity, if you want to. If your tastes and demands for your future evolve, you might be able to use it, right? Why does the public education system pour in so much money to make sure that you guys all know math, English, science? A lot of topics you probably won't use because you just might use it. When I entered into college, one of the biggest things I was shocked about, I was majoring in biology with a focus in genetics. And I was shocked to know that how much philosophy, how much statistics, how much computer science, and how much math went into my field of study. And if I wanted to go further and further in depth, it would be very helpful to know these sort of topics, right? A lot of the disciplines and majors that will be available to you guys in college would require you to go and have certain academic skill sets to be proficient in. So you're not lost. Math is a language, science is a language, English is a language. Knowing these languages provides you with the opportunity to go and excel in the field you want to go and find your jobs in. So yes, careers, opportunities, economic advancement, money, security. What else? There's also freedom in it, right? Education is pivotal to freedom. I think we can all agree to this. Yeah? It helps you live a more free life. But what if I asked you how? Right? You can just go and stand up here and say all these things. How does education guarantee for you a freer way to live? Do you guys feel free right now, by the way, being students? You feel like you can do anything you want in life? No, all people are shaking their heads. No, 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 right? People who are educated and people who are not educated. Being educated is a source of power, competency, your ability to go and have mastery over the surrounding environment, your experiences in the world around you. Freedom to care for ourselves, our own future, and to define what it is we want. Once we've defined what we want, education allows us to go ahead and realize that for ourselves. Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a mom? Do you want to be a florist? Education equips you with the tools to realize things for yourself. It's a tool of empowerment. And finally, education, believe it or not, is meaningful. I always ask my students when I give these sort of talks, do you believe education is meaningful? Do you think it should be? I think we are all in agreement. The answer feels like it should be yes. Education should be meaningful. It should mean something to us. It should stir something within our hearts. But then I ask a follow-up question. Well, does it? Is it meaningful? Do you look forward to it? I think a lot of you guys feel that it's maybe neutral, or some of you guys don't have a great relationship with it. Maybe a few of you do have a great relationship with it. For those of you who do find meaning in education, I'm so proud of you, right? I'm happy for you. But for those of you who struggle to find that, right, I think it's important that we think and reflect upon what education means to us and take ownership again of the relationship we have with it, right? So there's opportunity, there's freedom, there's meaning, but how does it feel for a lot of students these days, middle schoolers and high schools alike, right? It feels, instead of there being opportunity, it feels challenging. It feels more and more competitive. It seems like college is hard to get into, med school is hard to get into. It feels like the economic promise that comes at the end of your education seems daunting. There are a lot of young adults in Korea and America that struggle with the prospect of after college, what's going to happen. Something interesting I've noticed in the last 10-ish years I've been teaching is there seems to be a steady decline of hope, right? Instead of being excited for the future that's there at the end of education, there's a sense of dread. And kids who are studying really hard, getting all the A's, I ask them, what drives you? Where the answer used to be, because I'm excited about the life I get to live. It's more, I'm scared that if I fail, I won't be able to take care of myself. My parents will be disappointed in me. I would have wasted the gifts given to me. I'm scared. So where there should be opportunity, instead there is this intense, immense pressure, right? And a lack of hope. Where there's supposed to be freedom, where you get to go ahead and chisel out, narrate the life you're supposed to live, instead it feels oftentimes the choices are already made for us, or just going through the motions. It's like you can close your eyes and just walk the beaten path, and hopefully you'll end up at the right place. It's almost as if you have no active role in deciding what your future is going to look like. Just go to school, do your homework, get your tests done, get the A's, go to college, right? And throughout this seminar, I hope that you'll take a more active role in that. And finally, where it's supposed to be meaningful, education oftentimes feels, like I said, mechanical or soulless. A means to simply get into college, right? When it could be so much more. So when education is kind of despondent, when education feels a little soulless, when education feels it's antithetical, opposite, contrary, opposing our freedom, we usually turn our attention to things that we are in control of. Who here likes video games? Anyone like video games here? No? League of Legends, Valorant, right? PUBG, things like this, right? No? None of you guys play video games? Yeah? What do you guys play? What kind of games do you guys play? FPS? Overwatch? Overwatch is free, right? Yeah? Who here watches TikTok or goes on Instagram and kind of scroll through things? Everyone does, right? Have you ever wondered like why we kind of do these things? It's easy, right? It's instant gratification. It's clear. In video games, we have a very clear sense of control, right? And a lot of times, this is mostly for the parents out there. A lot of parents wonder, why do my students, why do my kids play video games or are on their phone all the time, right? Why are they so unmotivated? Why are they not excited about studying? Why don't they just go ahead and grind out the ACT, the SAT, and just get all A's all the time and do great things, right? When the current state of education is in decay, when we feel a sense of despondency towards our future, when we feel we have lost agency, we're likely going to go ahead and fixate ourselves into things we have control over. Video games give you instant gratification, and you have great control over them. By the way, I don't think video games are evil. I'm not saying that, right? But I want the parents to go and understand, why do kids turn to video games? This sense of easy community is a sense of easy accomplishment, very clear goals. It's exciting, it's immediate. Whereas education is more abstract, and it's a bit more difficult. Phones as well, right? Instagram, feeds, TikTok, they're not evil in themselves, but they serve as a very easy alternative to actively working on a future. But when education and your students' relationship with education is fraught, they'd rather spend their time elsewhere, right? So how do we go ahead and fix this, right? What steps should we take to go ahead and ameliorate the situation? I think there's 5 steps. 5 things I want you to focus on throughout this seminar: becoming better students. Better students, by the way, just doesn't mean you sit in home, study all day, do nothing. I want you to have a better relationship with your studies. The first one is agency. Agency is taking ownership and responsibility for studying. We'll talk more about that today. Next is structure. Yeah, I want to study, but how do I do so? What sort of action should I take? Concretely, what should I do on my free time? What choices should I make so I can be a better student? Third is discipline. We hear that word a lot, right? What does it take to actually be disciplined? Is it just sitting around waiting for some sort of inspiration to come upon me? Oh, I just feel like today's a day to study. I just watched this amazing video and wow, I could just go and study and be a doctor. Are we waiting around for inspiration? What exactly does it mean to be disciplined? And tomorrow we'll talk about the romance of it all, the romanticism behind studying, the way we can derive meaning from it. Yes, there is a romance to studying. And then finally, we'll talk about the goal, the where this will lead us. These 5 things are what I want us to focus on the seminar. So let's go and start with step 1, agency. Who here knows what agency means? Just give the definition. Can anyone give it to me? Agency, what does agency mean? Definition of agency. You bring treats next time, right? So like they answer questions, start throwing it, right? Chocolates or Reese's Pieces or something. What does agency mean? Anybody? No? If you answer, I promise I'll give a piece of chocolate tomorrow. Anybody? 2 things, guys. Agency. It's understanding the choices you make are for your own benefit. Once again, it's ownership of your actions. Ownership of your actions, that's one part of agency. Number 2, it's faith that your actions have impact. It's faith that your efforts have a consequence. It's belief that you're not powerless in a situation, that you can make a choice and see changes happen. And in this case, changes in your own life. So 2 parts. Agency requires owning up to your actions, being responsible for them, and believing it can actually make a difference. Understand? Every student must ask the question why they study. We've covered this. And part of growing is reflecting on yourselves, thinking about the question why. The older and older you get, the more often and frequently you'll ask these questions. Why? I think one of you was a senior, correct? I'm sure you're asking that question quite a bit about where does this all lead me? Right? Why do I do all this? These are important questions for spiritual growth. But I'm going to challenge you guys to think about not why, but for whom do you study? For whom do you study? Right? The question of for whom do we study, I think, is a question fundamental to agency. Who knows what this picture is? Anyone know what this picture is? Huh? Is it a tiger about to eat a kid playing the piano? No. This is actually a New York Times depiction of a phenomenon called tiger mom. You know what a tiger mom is? Yes? Someone who's sort of lording over every little minutia. We call it helicopter mom as well, right? Making sure that every single minute of your life is already planned out, making sure you're studying, getting into your piano lessons, violin lessons, making sure you're being efficient as possible to become the greatest student possible, right? This idea of a tiger mom. And it's pretty endemic of the Korean population as well, right? But I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding, not just you guys, but my students back in Atlanta as well, a misunderstanding. If there were more parents, I would ask them. Parents, when I ask your students the question, for whom do you study? Do you want the answer to be you? What do you guys think? Do you think your parents say, wow, I wish my son, my daughter, lives their whole life because of the pressures I put on them? I've asked the parents these questions. I've talked with a lot of parents, hundreds. Not a single one say, I want him to study because no one. They say that, and but they do say, make me proud, do this, do that. Why? Because if you don't take ownership of your own education, you might as well rely on your parents' standards of action, right? When you're in elementary school, right, kids study really, really hard. Why do you think they do that? Do you think they just sit down and think about, wow, as a kindergartner, I really got to study and become amazing in the future. Got to go to college and become a doctor. Do you think that's what they think? Kindergartners don't think like that. No, kindergartners just simply see their parents praising them, showering them with love, and they say, wow, this is great, right? Man, the dopamine is hitting, right? It's amazing. My teachers are giving me little gold stars. My parents are saying I'm doing a great job, right? They're so proud of me when I study. Our motivations are external to us. Our education, we can't own it because a child is incapable of being responsible for their actions. Are you children? Some of you guys are going to be adults soon, right? Are you children? Are you like the kindergartner who can't take responsibility for their actions? Parents don't want themselves to be the reason you study. And what do you think the answer should be then? For whom do you study? Now, I'll give you several levels of answers. The first level here would be, you should be studying for yourself. It's for your own betterment. It's for your benefit you're studying. When you go out and study for the math test and get an A, in the end, whom does it actually benefit? It benefits you. It increases your chances of getting to college and increases your capacity to go and be a better student. It's one step closer to being educated and capable in society. It's setting up for your future, right? But for whom do you study? Now, a more nuanced answer, right? It's not all black and white, is it? Right? For those of you who are a little bit older, I would encourage you to go and think about it this way. You don't just study for yourself, but you study because you're indebted, right? Indebted to the love given to you by your parents, by God. When you're loved, when you're cared for, with that usually comes some level of expectations you must set for yourselves, right? It's not out of resentment. The lowest level of thinking a kindergartner is, we say it's because of our parents we study really hard. And when we go and do that, what happens? What happens? You resent your parents. The knock on the door at 10 p.m., opening the door, looking in, and you're playing video games with your friends, right? You know there's going to be a fight. You know there's going to be an argument, right? You don't like these kind of feelings. You resent your parents for being this sort of police-like entity causing you misery and stress. But why do they have to do that? Why do they have to be someone that causes you so much grief, pain? It's because you can't take responsibility for your own education. If you have this, if you see your parents and you resent them, right? You look at them and say, it's because of you. You make me so miserable. You pressure me so much. I'm so stressed out because of you. Don't blame them. It's because you can't take responsibility for your future. Take ownership of your actions, right? We'll talk more about this, right? And once you grow up even further, I think you can also find motivation through the gratitude you feel towards your mom, your faith, God. Okay? Not just for yourself, but this is the proper response to the love you've been given, right? It's not up there anymore. Nobody wants to. The mothers don't want to be a tiger mom. They don't want to be your police. They don't want to be your captor. Your parents, do you think your parents like it when you don't like them? When you see them as annoying? When you just simply say, stop talking to me, stop talking, stop asking me questions about this, stop making me go here, there, read books, study. Do you think their parents like that? What kind of relationship do you think your parents want to have with you? Right? They're on the same team. But unless we take responsibility for our own lives, they'll always feel like an opposing force. Agency is a first step to realigning yourself so you guys feel like you're on the same team. Understand? Be grateful to your parents, right? And the responsibility for you to be a good student, say, Mom, Dad, I want to be responsible for my studying. Thank you for badgering me all this time, but I'm going to do a better job too, right? You need to be looking into the same direction. You guys know The Little Prince, the book, The Little Prince? You like it? Yeah, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, right? One of my favorite quotes from another book of his, he says, love does not consist in two gazing into each other's eyes, but standing and looking out the same direction. I think with a little bit of agency and responsibility for education, you can have that with your parents. Harmony back at home, okay? What do you see over here? Oh, sorry. What do you see over here, right? Has anyone actually done this outside of school? I don't think they do that in America. When I was in the countryside in Korea, like there's cows and there's fields everywhere, it was a school for students who had disciplinary issues or their parents abandoned them or they're orphans, right? They were kind of like street kids. The head of the school created a sort of like a second chance opportunity for these students that fell through the system to have another shot at education. I remember seeing this. It's just wow, all these kids, because they're falling asleep in class, they'd go walk in, and it was actually, they had to hold the buckets above their head like this, right? If you watch anime, you sometimes see that, right? Holding the buckets above your head, right? Yeah, so there's this child standing in punishment. What's the second one, though? Second one. What's that other guy doing? He's working out, he's getting gains, right? He's getting buff, right? What do these two have in common right now? What do the two have in common? Anybody? Both their arms are tired, right? Both their arms are gonna be pretty tired, right? What's the key difference between the two, do you think? Anyone? Key difference between the two? Agency, choice. Do you think the kid wants to be out there holding these buckets? You want to hold out buckets outside? No? Right? But when you go to the gym, bunch of people pay money to go and lift weights. What's the difference? What's the difference? It's choice, it's agency, it's responsibility, right? I'm going to go and assume most of you don't like study. Studying is not meant to be a lot of fun, right? It's like exercising. When you go and lift weights, your arm doesn't feel good. You're literally tearing apart the muscles when you're lifting weights, right? But you can still enjoy it. The difference here is, one is you're compelled, one is you're pursuing yourself. One's enforced, one's pursued by the self, right? When you're in your room doing your homework because your mom yelled at you, is that fun? You like that? No, you don't like that, right? When you feel like you have to do something because otherwise someone will be disappointed in you, you just feel the pressure of having to perform. But when you go and start taking agency, a realignment of the psyche to say, I'm doing this for myself, it's different. You're no longer the kid waiting outside, holding buckets. You become the guy at the gym, lifting weights, right? For your own advancement, right? The guy who's lifting weights, you know what's going on biologically? Anyone here like biology, AP Bio? Anyone in AP Biology? AP Bio? Yeah, what's happening to the muscles when you lift weights? Cellular respiration does happen, yes. The mitochondria is growing bigger, but what happens to the muscle fibers? You're literally breaking them apart. There's great biological pain happening, right? But if you go, do any of you guys lift weights, go to the gym? Yeah? But it feels good though, right? Right? Getting stronger. It's literal pain. Your body's quite literally breaking down, and you enjoy it because you know doing so, you're getting healthier, stronger. And you can feel the same way about studying as well. And so to summarize here, if you don't take ownership of your own education, something that can tend to happen is we begin to blame others, blame the situation, blame our parents, or we give up, right? And in doing so, we begin to go and sort of warp what our parents mean to us as well. Who in this world do you think loves you the most? In this world, out of the people. Who loves you the most? Is it me? Do you think I love you guys the most? Like, I don't even know your names, right? Friends, do our friends love us the most? Right? This is easy. You should be able to say this with pride. Parents love you the most. Don't let your lack of responsibility turn them into someone you despise. I'll say this again. Don't let your lack of responsibility and agency transform them into someone you hold bad feelings for. They love you the most. Learn to be responsible for that. All right? You have a better relationship with them and a better relationship with study. Okay? Next is going to be control. We talk about two parts, right? Taking ownership, being responsible for our actions, and also feeling that your actions and choices actually have impact. Some of us, yeah, I have a great relationship with our parents. I'm trying really hard. I feel responsible for my studies. But Mr. Cha, when I study, I just feel like it doesn't mean anything. I work and work and work, right? And I get C's and D's, and I just don't know why, and I'm frustrated, right? I feel like my actions have no meaning. No matter how hard I try, I fail. Why keep trying? My actions don't have meaning. I've lost agency. You no longer believe in the potency of your choices, right? If you haven't felt this before, sooner or later, when classes get harder, you might feel this. Winston Churchill. Do you know who Winston Churchill is? Winston Churchill? You don't know Winston Churchill? Yeah, World War II guy, right? He said, you do the quote, if you're going through hell, does anyone know the rest of the quote? If you're going through hell, what should you do? If you're going through hell, don't stop, keep going, right? Don't stop if you're going through hell. Just keep going, get through it, right? If you're feeling as if your choices and hard work has no meaning or impact or ability to change the outcome, don't give up. I'm going to give you some practical things that can help you, right? One thing that's helped students in better understanding their frustration with their studies, right? Where they feel like no matter how hard they try, it doesn't work out. It's because they don't quite understand what the issue is. This picture of water. Water's going to the glass. It's working great, right? The first issue you can fall under is it's a skill issue. It's a skill issue. Skill issue would be if you're trying to pour water into a glass, right? But there's no water in the jug, right? There's no water in the jug. You're pouring and you're like, man, I'm really, really thirsty, but they're just, I wonder why water isn't coming into the cup, and you're just feeling so sad. Like, if I went to France right now and studied in high school, yeah, I'd get all A's. No, I'd get all F's. It's terrible, right? But I shouldn't go ahead and lose hope, despair, and feel like, oh my gosh, I have no control of my actions. I need to recognize, wow, this is outside of my capacity, right? This is outside of my skill set. In the context of school, you have educators and teachers who can help you, right? Ask them after school, before school, to better understand what's going on. Take steps maybe on your own, watching some YouTube videos or maybe with a tutor to fill that water back up in your own jug, right? Understand if it's a skill issue, there needs to be self-improvement to fill your jug up. Issue of method. Method is different. Method is your jug might be filled with water, and here's the cup, here's the jug. You know what you do? You miss. Bring it onto the table, right? Is the cup going to get filled if you miss? No. You might have the skill, the capacity to go and study, but you're not studying correctly, right? There are a lot of students who go ahead and study really, really hard. Like I remember there was a student I was working with who had AP world history. And she had a choice between reading the textbook and looking at the study guide the teacher made for her, right? She said, you know what, I'm going to be a really good student. I'm going to read the entire chapter, the 45 pages in the unit. And because it must be with the study guide as well. She worked really hard, and she got a C+, right? She had the skill set, she had the drive, but she didn't quite understand the game, right? The game of getting good grades in class, right? It's not just effort and skill. It is a correct application of one's method. And finally, there's motivation. We'll talk about motivation, right? Motivation is if you don't even want to pick up the jug and pour it, right? And we'll talk about that as well, right? So one thing that can help you if you're feeling like your actions don't have any consequence, there's no power behind your choices you make, think about those three things. Think about, is it a skill issue? Is it a method issue, right? Is it a motivation issue? Understand, right? And don't beat yourself up for things that's not under your control, right? Focus on what is under your control. To summarize this point about agency, right? First, reflect on your reasons for learning. For whom do you study, right? Second, take ownership of your education. And third, be in control of your education, right? And being in control means thinking about what exactly is holding you back from becoming a better student, right? After agency, we have a structure. Great, I feel so motivated now, Mr. Cha. I feel like education is mine to go and seize. I don't go and think I do it for my parents. I do it because I feel it is my responsibility to do so. It betters me, it's for my own future. And if anything, it's an expression of gratitude I feel towards my mother, my father, God. I feel it, right? If I'm having a hard time, I'll go and fix it. I feel the agency, so what? How can I study better? What sort of structure should I apply my now newfound will to, right? What is this a picture of? Anyone know? Normandy, yes, D-Day. Who knows what D-Day is? Is there anyone who knows D-Day? D-Day? Oh, what is D-Day? Can you tell me? It's a day that starts with D, right? D-Day was the amphibious invasion, right, against the German forces during World War II. It was a turning point of the war where the Allied powers finally had the upper hand against the Axis, right? It took a lot of planning, a lot of studying, strategizing, thinking, moving the date back, looking at the weather, giving false information to the spies of Germany. Yeah, it took a lot of planning. They had to go and understand what the battle was going to be, what their battlefield is going to be. As students, what is your field of battle? The first one's easy, right? It's school, right? School is your first field of battle, right? Don't just go to school because you gotta go. Don't let it happen to you accidentally. Go in there with intent and purpose and a plan in mind. Dude, if you're gonna be in school, you might as well get something out of it, right? If you're going to be in school, at least do a good job of it. Whether you wanna be there or not, you're going to be there. Understand? You're legally required to be there. Let's figure out how we can best navigate school. I think it's not too complicated. Number one, as the admissions interviewer, we were told, we were trained on this. What does your grade reflect? That's what they asked. What does your grade reflect? What does your grade reflect? Your intelligence? That's what usually people think, right? What we've been told, and how colleges, the top tier colleges will look at it is, your grade reflects your ability to go ahead and understand the instructor's standards, right? If I go to Spanish class and she gave me an essay to write and I wrote it in French, and it's a beautiful essay, worthy of the Nobel Prize, right? Do you think I'm gonna A for this? Absolutely not. The focus of the classroom environment is the teacher. Understanding what it is the teacher wants out of you. I gave you the example of the student who studied from the textbook and the study guide, right? What did she do wrong? She's clearly capable, she's got the brains and the motivation, but she studied defining for herself the own standards for what the test should be over. When you're going to class, I know it sounds strange, you need to study your teacher. Think about what it is your teacher wants you to understand about the topic. The topic of math, history, English, science, it is so broad. Those of you who are in chemistry, you guys must learn gas laws, right? You know how in-depth that can get, right? we need to go and focus on not just the topic, but your teacher's digestion of the topic. And in doing so, there's two things that are focused. The curriculum now. There's two types of teachers you'll find. One who creates their own curriculum, and one who borrows a curriculum. You know those teachers that simply just sit down and just do slideshow, and give like worksheets out, right? That's the second type. They're borrowing a curriculum. And there are teachers who are excited to teach. They don't even need a textbook. They'll write on the board and just tell you everything. They know their stuff. One thing I would highly recommend you guys do is to figure out what sort of classroom are you in. This is good for high school as well as college. Is it a borrowed curriculum, or is it a curriculum that the teachers have authored themselves? If it's a curriculum that the teachers authored themselves, dude, you need to pay attention. This is the one you need to really pay attention to, right? See what the teacher's saying, soak it all in, ask questions, and show appreciation for the master of the craft. This is a proper teacher. This is an educator. He loves what he does. She loves what she does. Pay attention. Don't be chatting with your friends in the back, right? That's what you need to do, okay? If it's a borrowed curriculum, the shift is different. If it's a borrowed curriculum, find the source book, right? Find the source book, whatever she gives you. If she doesn't give you, find it online, and figure out what within that source book does she want you to focus on, right? Focus exactly what in that borrowed curriculum does the teacher want you to focus on, right? There's no way that, very seldom, will teachers who use borrowed curriculum have the competency to go ahead and know everything in the borrowed curriculum. It happens, right? And that's okay, right? Some teachers have more experience than not, right? And by the way, I'm not demeaning people who use borrowed curriculum. It's a good way to go and transition into becoming a more competent teacher in your own topics. But if you're in a classroom setting where it's a borrowed curriculum, don't focus on the teacher per se, focus on what the curriculum method is, right? Usually, like in math, they have like this big packet of math problems they'll give to you. Or if it's an English one, they'll have already a book and then state-approved worksheets, things like that. Look at that and see how your teacher interacts with it, right? So if it's your own curriculum, focus on how the teacher interacts with the topic. If it's a borrowed curriculum, see how your teacher interacts with the materials she or he is giving you, right? And study that hard. Understand? Okay? Finally is your behavior. Do you think grades are fair? Who here thinks grades are fair? Yeah, grades are fair. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not fair. Teachers are fallible. Do you know how many students an average teacher has in high school? I taught in high school for 6, 7 years. How many students I have? Right? You have somewhere between 200 to 500 students every semester, right? It's hard. I remember back in college, I don't know when it started clicking on how to go ahead and do well on my essays. It's a small class, 10 people, and the professor will go and talk about Hume or Hobbes or one of the social philosophers, but what I would do is I'd go and take notes on what the professor's ideas on it was. What was the professor's interpretation? Because this professor spent his whole life interpreting this guy's work. I'll make an outline, and I'll go to the teacher, and I'll go and sit down and say, hey, this is the outline, right, of the essay I'm going to write, right? This is from the talking points you showed me. In doing so, I'm sort of inspiring a bias within the teacher, saying, hey, look, this is a sort of class, this is what I've got out of your classes, this is what the essay, the outline is going to be, right? And then the teacher, and I just would like your feedback on it, and the teacher will give some feedback, blah, 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 and you say, you know what, that's great, and I emphasize, you want me to make this change? I'll make sure that change is in there. Thank you so much for your time. I'd go write the essay. If you are a professor, and you're grading, let's say, 200-300 essays, right, every 1 week, every 2 weeks, and you see my name on the essay, do you think you need to spend that much time reading it over carefully? No, they know what I'm going to write about. They trust me, right? I've already gotten their seal of approval. It wasn't like I was a bad writer, but look, teachers are people. If you go and goof around in the back of the class and all of a sudden you get an A+, you know what the teacher's going to think? I have this conversation now with a lot of my other fellow teachers. They say, I think that kid cheated. Isn't that terrible, right? They think these are the conversations they have in the teacher's room. There's a kid in the back of the room who's goofing out on TikTok all day, and then he gets out of nowhere an A+, they doubt you. Don't give them reasons to doubt you, right? AP exams. Who's taking an AP exam? Anyone? AP exam? Yes? You know the FRQ section? You got to go and write it all down? Yes? AP exams are college level exams you take in high school, and you need to write in your handwriting answers to some questions. They did a research. You know who gets higher grades? People with good handwriting, right? Grades are not objective, right? You're working with humans. Your behavior matters. This is teaching you professionalism. Go into school, pay attention. Have fun with your friends during recess, right? But your teacher's opinion of you will go on and impact how the grades will look. Unfortunately, it will, right? Not only that, when you go and ask for their recommendation letters, when you go and apply to colleges, it'll also be helpful, right? Go to school like it's a job. You haven't had a job, so you might not know what that feels like, but, right? If you're gonna do something, do it right. I'll say this again. Right? If you're gonna do something, do it right. Otherwise, just don't do it. If you're gonna do something, you're gonna go there, you're gonna sit in the class, learn something, and do it right. Where's the other place? Home. Home. Who likes studying at home? Anyone like studying at home? No? Do you guys study at cafes, libraries? No. You guys know the lo-fi beats? Yeah? The lo-fi beats music to study to? Yeah, you know that one, right? The girl with like the googly eyes and the headphones, right? And there's a cat, right? It's very atmospheric, it's very aesthetic, right? There's some reasoning behind all this, right? One of the reasons people don't like studying at home because it just doesn't look that nice, right? You know, you got your little bag of Doritos on the side, right? You got your crusty little mouse, where you played League of Legends last night. Your bed is messy everywhere, and it just kind of smells a little bit, right? You sit down and you're like, wow, yeah, this is not a place to be studying. I want to go and encourage you to think about the setting, right? A setting transforms the individual. When you come to church, and you act like when you're at home, laying down on your side, snoring. No, you're in a place that demands reverence, right? The setting, the atmosphere you're in, has a huge impact on your psyche. If your place of study, your home, your room, wherever you choose to study, doesn't elicit respect from you, how can you go ahead and give respect back, right? Clean your rooms, clean your desk, right? Make it a place that you wouldn't mind sitting down and studying. Maybe get a little, succulent plant, right? Put it down there, right? Put on the lo-fi beats, some ambient light, maybe fairy lights or something. I romanticize it all. Sit down there and you just feel like, wow, this is nice. Second thing is this. The place you study is only for studying. If you want to play, I highly recommend trying this. Don't use the same desk for video games and study, right? If you're sitting there on the desk, doing your homework, that desk is only for studying. You want to get on your phone? Stand up, go somewhere else and use your phone. Start building this habit so you start associating that location, that place, as a place to improve yourself academically. This is important, right? You start doing this, it takes about 3 months for habits to form. Once you start associating your study space for studying, it feels different. You become transformed. It's a ritual you undergo for yourself to maximize what you get out of your study time. So now we have the study time. When I study, what should I do? What's the order? What do you mean study? What is studying? Some kids actually just came up and said, Mr. Shah, you said to study hard, clean your room, I did it. What do you mean by studying? What I mean by studying is 4 things. Number 1 is concept. Do you understand the concepts being taught to you? If you're on the unit for addition, right? You better know how to add. If you don't know how to add, you can't do your homework, you can't do the quiz, right? Understanding the concept. Usually you're supposed to get the concept at school. If you don't get the concept at school, YouTube, Khan Academy, tutor. You got to figure out the concept, right? Make sure you understand the concept. That's the first part of study. Do you know what you're doing? Second, homework, right? Are there any assessments coming up, right? You get those things done. You're done with that. You still have time to study. Third will then be any upcoming assessments and quizzes. Quizzes, tests, projects. These are the things you should be studying for. If you get all these 3, you want to be a little bit try hard. Fourth would be studying ahead for future topics. Mr. Cha, I don't know what they're going to be studying next. Ask your teacher, hey, what's the syllabus? What's going on next, right? If your teacher doesn't know, I'm sorry, you have a bad teacher, but I think most teachers should know what you're studying next. So if you don't know how to study, think about those 4 steps. Setting for study, only for study. If you need to play games, you want to do something else, stand up, go somewhere else, okay? A place to study is just for studying. Similarly, I also recommend, I think we all use our phones in bed, right? Yeah, do you guys use your phones in bed? It's not good for your sleep, right? I'm not saying phones are bad. A place to sleep is a place to sleep, not for your phone, right? If you use your phone, stand up, use it somewhere else, right? This sort of discipline will help you moving forward, right? So once again, good setting for learning. Make sure you understand the concept, get your homework done, start with the quizzes and tests, and then future topics. We call this the learning triage. You know what a triage is? Triage? Anyone have family members in medicine? No? Yeah? Yeah, triage is like when you go into ER, who gets immediate care first? Like what's most pressing? Think of it in that order, right? Setting, concept, homework, assessment, and then getting ahead, all right? Final step for this seminar is going to be discipline. We hear this a lot. What exactly is discipline? Two things for discipline: a standard of behavior, an adherence to those standards. Do you have standards for behavior? How you should live life? Do you? Little kids have no standards, right? If you leave them be, they become really, really dirty, and they become a real stinking mess. Do you think kindergartners like to brush their teeth? I hope you guys all brush your teeth. You guys have adopted that standard behavior, saying, wow, I have my own standard behavior where I believe I should be brushing my teeth. I hope you guys do this, right? Part of agency is taking ownership of your education. This ties in with discipline. Part of discipline is having your own standards of behavior. When your standards of behavior is given to you, externalized, I hope no one says, oh, I gotta brush my teeth because my mom making me brush my teeth. Wow, that's not good, right? Right? In a similar light, if you're saying, man, I gotta go to school because my mom's making me, it's equally ridiculous, right? You must have your own standard of behavior, and then second is you need to go in and stick to those standards of behavior, right? This is how you go and better form a relationship with yourself, right? This is one of my favorite quotes from a book that I like by Harumi Murakami, surrealist Japanese author. Life doesn't require ideals, it requires standards of action, right? Ideals versus standards of action. And we'll explore this a little bit more, right? It's talking about an idea of waiting to feel like doing something, right? Sometimes you just feel like you should be doing something, right? And sometimes you don't feel like you're doing something. Discipline requires you to act independent of how you feel. Standards are kept regardless of the circumstances. I repeat, standards are kept regardless of the circumstances. Okay? So, another thing that helps you stay disciplined is acting with intent, right? These are some tips I would give. Number one, I don't need you to be studying 24/7. But it's really helpful if you go home and say, you know what? From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. is work time. It's study time. This is study time. I'm going to be studying for 2 hours. This is important. In our brains, how our minds are organized, you need to define what that time means. Okay, it is work time. Next thing is that during that set time, all actions must have intent. Who here has started studying, and out of nowhere, you got bored and just pull your phone up, and then you're scrolling through TikTok for like 5-10 minutes. Oh, what am I doing? Putting it down, right? Or checking on Discord, see who messaged me, right? We all do this. Breaks are not bad, but you know what is bad? It's bad when it wasn't planned, right? If you're gonna have a break, if you're gonna go on TikTok, if you're gonna go on Discord, that's great, but it better not be accidental. You better have planned it. That's what discipline is. Discipline isn't sitting down for 2 hours studying like a madman, like a machine. No, it's recognizing your own flaws and your needs. You need 15, if you can only study for 10 minutes, that's okay. We'll start from there, right? But telling yourself, I'm gonna study for 2 hours straight without distractions, 10 minutes in, you're playing League, 10 minutes in, you're playing a phone game, 10 minutes in, you're checking Discord, that's wrong. You know what you're doing? You're saying, I can't set standards I can keep up with. You set unrealistic expectations for yourself and disappointed yourself. You're creating a standard behavior, a pattern of behavior, of breaking your own discipline. Have breaks, play games, go on your phone, but do it intentionally. When you're entering into those 2 hours, I recommend sitting down and writing out what those 2 hours are going to look like, right? How many minutes are you going to study? What are you going to do on your break? When will those breaks be? And follow it. You're training yourself to be disciplined in creating your standards of action and keeping to them. The lack of standards is bad enough. It really is, right? Not having standards for how you should work during your work time, not having standards on how you should conduct yourself is bad. But when you have set for yourself your standards, right? Okay? And you find yourself compromising them, that's self-harm. You're damaging your psyche. Don't do it. Do what you say you're going to do. Something that helps is three things. Meditation, right? Just because I'm saying I'm going to be disciplined, do you think I'm going to have some failures? Absolutely not. One thing in meditation that helps is slowing things down, right? If it's your first time reading a book, like reading a book is hard, right? Or if you're the first time like reading the Bible can be hard. It can be difficult going through the sort of verbose language. You sit down there about 5 minutes in, you start feeling a little uncomfortable, like you want a quick fix or something. Pause, it's okay. We call this noting in meditation. Note how you feel right now. I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to do it. I don't feel like studying. I want to go do something else. Acknowledge it, right? And let that acknowledgement be enough. If you're ever feeling agitated, like, put on it, I want to do something else, pause, recognize how you're feeling, and let that acknowledgement be enough, right? All or nothing behavior. You're studying really hard. You couldn't stay disciplined. You decided to go out and play a game of whatever, or do something else, or watch television, Netflix, whatever, you messed up. Your plan is ruined. And so you go out and say, you know what? I had another hour and a half left of my study time. I already screwed up the first 30 minutes. I might as well screw up the rest of it. This all or nothing behavior is disastrous, right? Don't let one mistake become 20. Understand? Don't let your past mistakes become your reality for the rest of the day. Let that one mistake be in itself. You have an hour, 30 minutes left. Make good use of it. Okay? Slow down. Slowing down is important. One of the things that intent helps us with is it makes us go and think about what we are doing. If we're speeding through our actions, right? It's so easy to get agitated and just do things without thinking about it. Slow down. It'll help you go and be more meaningful with what you do, right? And conditioning is also important. And we'll talk about conditioning a little bit. If you're not getting enough sleep, right? If you're physically not well, it's hard to stay disciplined. Take good care of your health, right? What is this? TikTok, right? This is a research, this is from a research paper from one of the doctors, Dr. Julie Malbright, right? We'll read this, right? This is how she describes TikTok. You'll just be in this pleasant dopamine state, carried away. In psychological terms, it's called random reinforcement. It means sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and that's how these platforms are designed. They're exactly like a slot machine. Well, the one thing we know is the slot machines are addictive. We know there's a gambling addiction, right? But we don't often talk about how our devices and these platforms and these apps have these same addictive qualities baked into them. One thing you realize is you guys have brains that are getting bigger. You didn't know? You're not as smart as you're going to be in a couple of years. The brain stops developing in your mid-20s. It's growing bigger and it's more sensitive to changes. How long is a TikTok video, usually? About 15 to 30 seconds, right? And if you scroll through them even faster, it's gone. If not TikTok, YouTube Shorts, if not YouTube Shorts, then Instagram Stories, right? They're all very short. They're not in themselves bad, but you know why they are bad? Because it trains your brain to go and lower your attention span. I told you about conditioning, right? Every time you go and spending hours zoning out doing this, you're training your brain to only stay focused for 20 seconds at a time. And then when your teacher assigns you to read 3 chapters, it feels miserable, right? TikTok isn't bad, but you're training yourselves to become addicted to 20-second things, right? I would much rather you guys watch long-form videos that you can't just skip through. Sitting down and watching something on YouTube for 30 minutes is better than something taking 15, 20 seconds. That's very dangerous for the brain. Later on, you might not even be able to read properly. You can actually take the heart rate of people who need to sit down quietly. Sitting down quietly and doing nothing, their heart rates are going up, right? Because they're so used to getting constant stimulation every 10 to 30 seconds, right? You pretty much weaken yourself. It's another form of self-harm. Seriously, it is, right? Be careful what it is you're feeding yourself. If you're training yourself this way, don't be surprised 5 years down the line when you have difficulty sitting down for 30 minutes reading a book, and then your professor wondering why you can't go and finish this simple assignment. Train yourself. Condition yourself properly for what's ahead. This is one technique. It's called the Pomodoro technique. If you want, when you go and study, if you want to stay disciplined, this is something you guys can use, right? How the Pomodoro technique works is it's 4 cycles. You study for 25 minutes, only studying. Then for 5 minutes, you do whatever you want. TikTok, whatever. 25 minutes, 5 minutes. 25 minutes, 5 minutes, and then the 4th cycle, you spend 30 minutes, you do whatever you want. You do that 4 times, the Pomodoro technique, right? Something you guys can try. It gives structure, applied discipline, and when you have agency to go along with it, you can help out with your studies. Last slide, I kept you long, right? Agency, structure, and discipline. These are the practical parts of education that helps you become better learners, all right? Tomorrow we'll talk about the romance, the meaning behind education, and the sort of futures that await you. Study harder, all right? Thank you guys. It's Q&A time, all right? Yay. Oh. I'll just sit here. 아이고야. Wow. Questions? You can ask me anything. Yeah. My favorite pizza topping, guys, is pineapple. A lot of people don't like it. I don't like pineapple here. Pineapple? Yeah? People of culture, right? I've taught a lot of topics, by the way. I've taught, in high school, I've taught AP Biology, AP Chem, AP Calculus, AP Psychology, AP Comp Sci, World History, Euro, US History, Chem Physics 1 and Physics 2 on the AP level. If you have any questions on topics and those things, ask me. Go ahead.
Okay, we're going to use the mic so people on the live stream can understand what the question is.
Yeah. She raised her hand first, so we'll go
Or
to
the
next.
comment. Question or comments?
So I'm not like a science person.
You're not a science person?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't really understand it. So like next year I'm planning to take like AP Bio.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of my classmates right now are like struggling with it. So I'm wondering, kind of like what you said, how to study the teacher and
Right.
yeah.
So the AP classes are interesting in the sense that by design, they're all borrowed curriculum. The AP, I don't think you guys know a little bit about the AP. AP classes are made by an independent company known as the College Board, right? And they have big booklets with the whole curriculum out and how they want you to teach, right? Despite that, sometimes the teachers follow, sometimes the teachers don't, right? So when you say you want to do well in the class, generally that means you want to get an A in the class, right? AP classes are a little bit tricky because sometimes an A in the class doesn't really necessarily mean you've learned things you're supposed to for the AP exam, right? If they're struggling in class, it's usually because they're having a hard time understanding what the expectations of the teachers are, right? I'll go out and say what helps a lot is being active in the classroom before and after and asking your teacher, hey, there are a lot of things in this topic about cellular respiration. What are the things that you really want us to go and fully understand, right? Studying the teachers gives you a good idea as to how that test is going to look, right? And that's what I would recommend. And generally for AP Biology, what I would recommend is it's like a story. It's a lot of fun. It's really a lot of fun. If you want to try to get ahead in the summer, a book I would recommend is the AP Campbell AP Biology textbook. It's been used by pretty much every AP teacher I've ever met across all state lines. And it's been approved by the College Board, and it's got great diagrams there. And if you ever find it, or if you get the book, or I can try to bring it sometime and show you what chapters you can start reading ahead on. And yeah, I think that could help quite a bit. Also, there are some great YouTubers like Bozeman Science or the Amoeba Sisters who can help you kind of have a baseline understanding of AP Biology before you actually get into it, right? But to do well in the class, it's highly variable on the teacher. Fortunately, it is, right? So to do well in the class, understand what the standards your teachers are going to want you to have, right? If you ignore your teacher and think you can just make it all up by watching Bozeman Science or like the Amoeba Sisters, you might still get a C or a D even if you understand the topics really well, right? Study your teacher's standards. And then for the AP exam, right, make sure you study that textbook or these other sources that you can look up, okay?
My question is, I'm really good at like self-control, and I always have my phone when I'm studying. So like, I do like 10 minutes of studying and then like 5 minutes of break, like for like 3 hours or something. Is that
That's
also
great.
okay?
So as long as you're being disciplined with it, that's great. What I might encourage you to do, depending on what field you're going in, try improving little by little. In those who go to the gym, you look kind of built as well. Maybe you work out, right? Have you heard of progressive overload?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, progressive overload means that if you keep on giving your muscles a steam stimulation and working out, your muscles actually don't tear anymore. You just maintain the same strength you get. If you actually want to go and see the gains, you need to constantly improve yourself and push yourself a little further. One thing you can do, because you've quantified how you studied, you can actually start increasing that level. I would encourage you, maybe every month, increasing the study time by 1 minute. Instead of 10 minutes, push it to 11, right? And see how you feel with that and see how far you can push it, right? Doing so will go and increase your efficiency as you go up, and you'll see like study gains, right? You're becoming better at maintaining your focus longer and longer. But I'm really proud of you for being able to go and keep discipline like that for 3 hours. That's excellent, right? It seems like you already have a framework to go ahead and become a great student. Other questions?
So like I don't really schedule breaks, right? Is that okay? Because I just like study and just do homework and stuff.
Yeah, the key idea for breaks is there's a lot of students you can imagine who have a hard time not taking breaks, right? But they have this sort of glamorized idea that, hey, I can just sit down and study for 3 hours. Some people can. But sometimes when you set these unrealistic expectations for yourself and that you can't meet, it makes this sort of interaction. Your self-esteem actually starts going down. If I sit down and say, I'm going to go and study for 2 hours without taking a break, and I take, let's say, 2 breaks, and overall I only studied an hour, 30 minutes, that's really good. But deep down, I'll be like, oh, I can't even keep to what I'm saying, right? So for those of you who feel you need to take breaks, it's better that you do so with intent than not. If you feel okay just going straight, studying for 3 hours, that's fantastic. The key idea behind the portion of discipline is that your actions have intent in them, and that you're not just accidentally stumbling upon actions. That's what you want to avoid. Accidentally stumbling upon actions during work time. By the way, I don't mean you should live life this intense all the time. Wow, that'd be crazy, right? Like only when it's work time, act with intent. Otherwise, right, be at peace, right? It's okay. Like, you don't need to be this intense all the time. But yes, that's totally okay, absolutely.
So next week, me and my friends, some of my friends will be taking the ACT.
Oh yeah, that's the ACT,
Do you
right?
have any last-minute preparation tips?
Oh, geez, so I've taught the ACT for about 10 years, like 10, 11 years now, right? The first way to improve the score, right, is improving stamina, right? Stamina is the first barrier, right? A 3 hour, 50-minute test can be hard, right? So just taking the test without even correcting, just sitting down and being able to stay focused for 3 hours, 50 minutes will help improve your score. That's the first step. The second step then would be, in terms of time efficiency as to how quickly your scores can improve, English is the most efficient to study, the grammar section. Then it'll be the math, then it'll be the science, then it will be the reading, right? Those some other last-minute tips. I would go on and say for the math section, if you feel a little bit rushed on time, it goes in difficulty order. So rush a little bit in the beginning, take some more time near the end. English section, some timing strategies I might give is spend 9 minutes per passage because there's 5 passages, right? The reading section, right? There's 2 strategies. If you haven't been prepping before, 2 strategies you can approach for the reading section is, some people do 3 passages really, really carefully, and then 1 passage just kind of circle in, right? That's an idea. The other way is to go ahead and make sure you're keeping yourself properly timed. I highly recommend getting like an ACT watch or a non-smart watch. Keep time with everything. And for the science section, don't spend too much reading the passage in the beginning. The science section was designed to not be based off your previous knowledge. They purposely put passages on there that's like college level because they don't want you to already have the answers, right? What I would recommend for the science section is kind of treat it like you're navigating an Easter egg hunt, an egg hunt, right? You're just kind of looking at the field first, and then you look at the scavenger, then you go look at the eggs, right? Treat the science passage in the beginning, just kind of look around, see where the graphs are, see what the variables are, no longer than 30 seconds, and go straight to the questions, right? Some last-minute tips, right? And bring candy, right? Most of your glucose goes to your brain, and after about 2 hours after the English and math sections are done, having some glucose in your system can help you get the focus up, okay? Other questions?
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me.
There's a lot of gems that you've shared with us. So 2 things. As far as the ACT, I know that they're going to be having it computerized. They're going to change the format.
Yeah, so I know that the ACT is trying to go and roll out this transition into the computer system. That's correct.
Okay,
So is the SAT. So is the SAT. They're trying to.
So is there a different modality of studying for the computerized versus the written form of the test?
It depends on, so this was kind of start out with the ETS. They're the ones who go and administer the GREs and the other kind of postgraduate tests. It depends on what sort of practices they're going to standardize for the ACT. Until that comes up, it might be a little bit hard to see, right? But one hypothesis that some researchers are having and educators are having is that because kids are so used to online learning and learning on the computer, that perhaps it being on the computer, it might even be easier. In terms of test prep, right, what does it come down to? It comes down to stamina, it comes down to knowledge, and it comes down to efficient, like methodology, right? The knowledge, the studying for the knowledge part is still going to be the same, right? There might be a few tweaks in the methodology and how you want to approach and navigate, but in the end, the time, the seconds per question shouldn't change, at least not what they've released so far. And so the timing strategy should be the same. The only thing that might change is how you mark up your paper, right? So the reading section might change a little bit if your student is more used to annotating as they go along. But there shouldn't be huge structural changes to go ahead and revolutionize the way we approach the computer reading. If you get a 30 on the paper ACT, more likely than not, you should be about 1 point off, 31 to 29 on the computer version as well.
Another question is, I'm from California, so out in California, SAT is big. It's only here on the East Coast that ACT, I mean, there's different states that prefer. So I know with the SAT, you have just a little bit more time per question.
For the reading section especially. The reading section, how they describe the reading, I think the question is regarding maybe the differences in the reading section of the SAT and the ACT. Is that kind of along those lines?
In general, yes.
Sure. First of all, SAT is popular more or not or across the US, but the ACT is definitely popular, sometimes a little bit in the East Coast, mostly in the Midwest, very popular, some states in the South and some in the West. Like it's little spots here and there. There's no distinction between the ACT, SAT in terms of preference for colleges. Whether you submit ACT or SAT, the colleges will not discriminate one or the other, right? In terms of differences, we'll start with the English. It's almost the same. The English section, the grammar section is almost the same. The math section is a little bit different. Whereas the ACT has a larger breadth of topics, they cover more topics, the questions tend to be more straightforward, and they also tend to be less theoretical. Whereas the SAT, they have slightly fewer topics, slightly fewer. However, the questions are also theoretical. They ask you about the modeling of the question, what this represents, what this forms, and also a non-calculator portion. So technically, you need to be really good at smaller sort of subjects. If you have a broad, straightforward question, ACT would be the way to go. The reading section, the key difference is the following. Once the redesign of the SAT took place about, 7, 8 years ago, the reading section combined science section elements into the reading section. So there will be graph reading, right? And other scientific sort of questions they added on to the reading. And yes, you do have more time on the reading section for the SAT. However, the SAT also asks paired questions. Question what the line evidence, what line justifies this answer. They have questions like that. This will oftentimes lead to the reading section feeling a bit more difficult in general. The general reception I've gotten from students is the reading section for the SAT, you have more time. However, the question seems harder, trickier, and there's science sections in it as well. Whereas the ACT, a bit more straightforward, but you gotta go blitzing through it, right? That's how it differentiates between the two. Are there huge differences between the SAT, ACT scores from what I've seen from students? You know, the 10 years I've taught the SAT, ACT, I've only had about 8 students who showed a significant difference between the two tests. So I don't really think there's a big difference between the two. I generally recommend the ACT for now because there's more available released ACT tests than the SAT, because it's been out long. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Other ones? No? No? Comment? Oh, yeah.
The comment that I have is I find that work time fascinating because let's say some people don't have any homework. So what they do is, I'm not going to do any work today because I don't have any assignments. But if you have a work time, let's say, let's do 2 hours each day, whether I have homework or not, that's the time that you get started on your projects that are coming up, that you prepare instead of just always trying to take care of what you have that needs to be done.
Right.
You are able to plan for ahead. So even if you don't have homework that day, if you have work time, like you say, then you just sit down and you're preparing for the next essay, you're preparing for the next test. So I wish I had thought of that when I was younger.
Yeah, I really encourage you guys to think about the studying triage, right? What are the steps? If you have homework, if you don't get the concept, understand the concept. If you don't have homework, right? If you have homework, get it done. If you have upcoming assessments, quizzes, and tests, get started studying for that. And then upcoming topics, ask your teacher for the syllabus and start studying ahead, right? You feel so much more in control of your learning that way, right? Yeah, thank you. Other questions? I can answer any. You can ask me other questions too.
And I like that you told him to up his time, because let's say you're taking a test. Usually the test is not done in 10 minutes, but what if you've trained yourself every 10 minutes, now you get a break? Yeah. So your mind starts to wander versus if you up your study time.
Yeah, what's amazing is the fact that he started, the fact you quantified it, you're setting yourself, you've got the recipe for success, right? Once you can start quantifying how you live your life, you can actually see you can take real steps to start improving upon it, so, which is amazing. I think this is a very rare trait I haven't seen in a lot of students who've already kind of quantified how they're spending their time, right? Yeah. Anything else? No? All right, yeah. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Do you recommend taking like an AP language class?
Like AP foreign language or AP Lang?
Or yeah, just language and comp.
Oh, language and so like the AP Lang, AP language, right? Not AP French, not AP. Oh yeah, so a lot of students ask me, what do you recommend? It all depends on what it is you want to do. We'll learn more about it on the Sunday's talk, but what are your goals? Like if you go and tell me that, hey, I really want to go and take over my father's plumbing business and make 6 figures, right? Like, okay, maybe just a trade school, maybe college might not even be necessary in that case, right? If you already have like a job and future sort of set up, and you can go to college for other reasons. But if you're saying, I want to try to get into an Ivy League, yeah, that's absolutely necessary, right? So it all depends on where your goals align. Can you tell me a little about what you want to do after high school?
Oh, I don't know, maybe just like animal sciences, but like I was just more wondering if the class would be useful for English in general,
Absolutely.
like improving essays.
AP language is really nice in the sense that it teaches you about a lot of tools that make writing, what makes reading more impactful, right? It talks about the art of writing more than the artworks that's already been written, and helps you really appreciate how people convey themselves, right? And yes, it'll help you, not a whole lot, but it'll help you marginally with the ACT English and the SAT English reading sections, right? And help you become a better writer, which I think is a great skill.
On a test, like if you get like a 92 or something like that, is that just based on luck or just like your study issues?
I mean, it could be a lot of things, right? It depends on the sort of testing environment, how your teacher wants to curve things. Sometimes it matters on how strict the teacher wants to be on you as well. There's just far too many factors that go into a grade that comes up, right? I would say, don't just study the material, also study your teacher's standards, right? That's what's gonna come down to. There are plenty of smart kids who don't do well because they don't vibe with the teacher, they just don't understand what the teacher wants from them. Okay? Yeah. So it really would depend. Like if you got a 92 on an essay, yeah, that's really hard. That's really, really difficult. I say maybe the teacher isn't like vibing or something. Or maybe there are some, like maybe the rubric was too vague. If it was a very strict rubric and you just missed, let's say, 2 MLA in-text citations, and you got 4 points out for each of them, yeah, that's just effort issue, right? If it's a math problem and you didn't solve one problem, but everything else you got to get a 92 on it, yeah, that's a skill issue, right? If you decided to not show your work and the teacher's like, yeah, this guy's like not showing work because he thinks he knows everything, I'm gonna dock points off of it, and out of nowhere, that's a teacher issue. So being able to go and ascertain exactly where the issue lies in that 92, it's kind of self-diagnosis, right? And undergoing this diagnostic process will help you improve in the future, right? Know what caused that 92 and correct that. Is it teacher, is it quality, is it knowledge, whatever it is, right? It'll help. Anything else?